Okay, we are live. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Holy Humanist. Happy Easter weekend if you're celebrating. Happy Ramadan, Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem if you're celebrating and you're fasting this month. So today, as you can see, I finally have a very special guest who I've been meaning to collab with for a long time now. And I'm sure most of you people watching right now already know of Apostate Aladdin. But anyway, regardless, Apostate Aladdin, welcome to Holy Humanist. I'm so glad we've finally done this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
You're very
It's fun.
welcome. So I want to just, obviously, everybody who knows Apostate Aladdin, but those of you that don't, Apostate Aladdin is also an ex-Muslim activist and has a YouTube channel. And he does incredible work and some
Thank you.
amazing collabs with Secular Spirit as well. Fantastic live call-in shows. So this is Apostate Aladdin's channel. There is literally like a plethora of videos here, so entertaining as well. So please do go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And when you are watching the videos, please like, share, and subscribe. Share as much as you can. But yeah, so Apostate Aladdin, just to quickly, I think we'll just touch on that to begin with. You obviously decided to become an activist, and I'm so grateful that you did,
Thank you.
because genuinely you are most definitely one of the, I think, the 3 C's: cool, calm, and collected ex-Muslim voices out there. I always know what I'm getting into when I'm like tuning into your videos, and it's just the most relaxed, stoic, Socratic discussion, which just kind of like, you're like pleasantly, you like the interactions that there's been with Muslims there. So I
Mhm.
definitely have to take my hat off to you for that. You're doing amazing to kind of break those boundaries and, like you just build bridges and find those moments that you can kind of discuss things, and then you slowly peel back the layers with certain people. I've seen you do follow-up calls as well. So yeah, if you could just kind of tell us a little bit about your activism and why you started it and what you hope to achieve.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. That's very flattering. I don't know what to say. If I could blush, I'd be blushing right now, but I'm a little bit too tan for that. um, okay, so what is it that so my channel, I've kind of just, fallen into it. I didn't really ever intend on starting a YouTube channel. And in fact, I spent a little bit more time on TikTok in the beginning. Started with making some TikToks and then some live streams on TikTok, which are very different than YouTube live streams. And then eventually I transitioned to making YouTube videos, which was kind of what I had my eyes on ever since I started my TikTok account, because it felt like 60 seconds was way too short to express my thoughts, even though gives you a nice way to, hijack a meme or something to get a point across. It can be really entertaining and creative. It's a whole different thing. But anyway, eventually I made that jump over to YouTube, and what I make right now, I've focused a lot on live streams because I found a lot of value in these interactions. Some of the live
Mhm.
streams are call in where I've recently started having more ex-Muslims as well, but I started with, Muslims and other believers. Why do you believe? And that was one of the conversations that I enjoy the most, because we know why we believed, right? And
Mhm.
we don't always understand why someone would remain a believer, because once that switch flipped in our head, like that's it. There's no going
Yeah.
back. Um, so to me, it's amazing that someone would see the same facts that I see and they're still believing. So that was, it's interesting to hear it from them, and it gives them a chance to talk about it too. So I can go on and on about that kind of live stream, but I also make some videos, and I've started making a lot more videos for Ramadan. So check those out.
Okay,
Trying to make
amazing.
them, I'm trying to make them as short as possible, because people's attention spans, I know they can't sit through a 3 hour live stream, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of a short overview. I
And
try to
sorry,
focus
Apostate
on.
Aladdin, just
Sorry.
really quickly, what made you decide to even start on TikTok? Like, what was the kind of push to be like, I'm going to talk about this publicly?
So I started on a text-based forum, and
Mm.
I became a moderator at some point because I've told the story before, because there was a troll there. There were many trolls there, but a certain troll who was posting very awful things, and they didn't have enough moderators to, make sure to clean up those kind of posts. So I volunteered after having been productive in that community. And then eventually someone was trying to dox a YouTuber, Abdullah Samir. So I
Right.
reached out to Abdullah Samir and I was like, hey, heads up, if this is actually your information, just beware. Thankfully, it wasn't his actual true information. And I had an
Mhm.
interview with Abdullah Samir. I asked him, hey, can I just come on your channel, like without my face, obviously? And I haven't spoken to anyone about this with my voice ever. And it wasn't the intention of, I need a platform to start a YouTube channel or anything like that. It was more like, I want to get this off my chest.
Yeah.
um, with
I hear
Abdullah
that.
Samir. And
Mm.
he encouraged me. A lot of people encouraged me. They said, you should start a YouTube channel or something. And then he encouraged me. He said TikTok is easy to get into. So that's kind of how I stumbled into it. Yeah.
Wow, okay. And I'm so, so glad you did. I mean, somebody else just commented as well that obviously they found you on TikTok and then you watched your lives and came to YouTube. So it's already been quite a journey in your case.
Yeah. All within a span of a year so far. It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. So yeah, I think you and I have, at least on YouTube, kind of been active for about the same amount of time.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a whole new world. Just real quick, stop scamming,
Was
man.
was that intentional, by the way?
What,
Like a
what?
reference to a whole new world? Was that a reference to Aladdin?
Yeah, oh my God, I didn't
Okay.
even clock that until now. But yes, a whole new world with the flying carpet. Um, for sure. Stop Scamming Man, thank you so much for your super chat. Stop Scamming Man is a regular supporter, so thank you for being
Yeah.
here. Stop Scamming Man is saying the YouTube video on Smithsonian Channel, What These Mysterious Scrolls Tell Us About Women in Petra, shows Nabatean women could also own businesses. Yeah, and to be honest, like, this kind of information is not surprising to me anymore. If, you guys are tuning into some of my live streams with Lloyd, the amount of, um like the kind of deep dive into history, and you see like the status of women and how a lot of these people back then were either really like good seafaring people or traders or business owners, and women were a huge part of that. I mean, we just have to look at Khadija herself, but even uncovering Khadija's status as like a priestess, a businesswoman, so financially independent. Muhammad literally lived off of her and then completely flipped the switch on women after that, which is so ironic and so sad in itself. But yeah, thank you, Stop Scamming Man. That does not surprise me at all. We've been fed so many lies about like the Jahiliyyah or the period of ignorance before Islam. Um,
The fact that it's
hey,
called the Jahiliyyah is alone like propaganda. I mean, it's very obvious propaganda. They're just calling it the bad stuff.
yeah, exactly. The period of ignorance, as if
Yeah.
like there was absolutely nothing going on there, to the extent where they've kind of even all of the writing and the scripture that we're finding that also existed back then when Islam came, it just kind of all vanished, and they made it out that like that this was an illiterate society, but there was plenty of scripture going back and forth and through these trade routes. So
Mhm.
it's just I'm having a whale of a time kind of unpacking it historically. HR, thank you so much for your super sticker and thank you so much for being here. Yeah, everybody that's tuned in, thank you. I see all our familiar faces. John Stopman, thank you for being here. You are an exceptional mod as always, and I've received your emails as well. I will get back to you on that. Thank you for that. Okay. Hey,
Wait, before I
first,
forget,
yes.
you know what I found ironic now that you mentioned Khadija? I was just reading for my next video, and a lot of apologists and sheikhs and dawah people use it as if it's some kind of thing we should praise Muhammad for, that he was only married to one woman for however many years. It was like 25 years or something. And they're saying it as a plus. Like, look at how loyal this man was when he was just kind of a sugar baby married to a wealthy woman. Uh,
Yeah.
it's weird how they twist the narrative, but yeah, you said it, like she was the breadwinner there. So yeah.
Yeah, and she definitely like, quote unquote, wore the trousers in that relationship. And I would go as far as to say, and I'm starting to come to this conclusion more and more, but I'm leaning towards the fact that she was one of the masterminds behind Islam in general. So that's how much of a, I mean, even if you look at Muhammad's first revelations when he kind of goes running back to her and he's in a state of like fear and panic and doesn't know if he's seen the devil, and he kind of wants to kill himself, and she's there being like, there's all this weird stuff that's happening. She's asking him to sit on her lap in one case, and the other case she like takes her like robe off and says, can you still see what you're seeing? And it's just very weird. And then she goes, don't worry, this is not the devil, this is like from Allah himself, like you are the blessed one, and all of this. So that is a whole nother can of worms in itself, but it is very, very interesting stuff. Shiv, thank you so much for your super chat, and thank you so much for being here. You are a regular supporter as well. So I really appreciate it. Dawn of Head is saying, it's fun watching Nuria unpack all of this stuff. It's like she found Grandpa's long lost footlocker in the attic with all its amazing treasures in it. Indeed, exactly. I am. I'm a bit like a baby in a candy shop with all this information I'm learning. Also, Apostate Aladdin, I just wanted to flag this comment for you. Adonai saying, I must admit that there was a time that I was among those that trolled Aladdin when he tried to criticize David Wood and AP. However, I sat back and came to understand Aladdin's style of Islamic criticism.
Well, I'm glad that they admitted that, right? I like it when people say, not necessarily because they now like me or anything, but when people admit I used to have a position, I have a different one now. It shows some kind of growth and reflection, I suppose. And yeah, my focus, and I want to remind people, my focus isn't just let's critique and disprove Islam and stuff, because I always maintain that it was never proven to begin with. So the more we satirize it, the more we point out the very obvious flaws, the easier it is for everybody to accept that. But yeah, I'm glad that Adonai, I'm glad that you've come around now. Thanks for the comment.
Yeah, I completely agree with you about the growth thing, and just the way you see it, and you see it through interactions that like develop. It is very, very encouraging, and I think every time when maybe this kind of activism, and for you especially, like the level of trolls that you've dealt with in the past or continue to deal with, sometimes it's just overwhelming to the point where you're like, is this even all worth it? Because it can be very taxing, but then you see people and you see them kind of be on this journey themselves, and you're kind of a part of it. It does make you think there is hope, and people do change their minds if you carry on. Like, as you were saying earlier, like was that this is actually something I wanted to bring up with you, because I thought the same thing. Like, I used to have so much faith, and then I found out what I found out. And now if I'm showing that to somebody else, I'm shook that they don't have the same reaction in a way to, because you'd think we're on the same page about everything else. So why are you not like, whoa, like, okay, this is a problem I need to think about? But when you see people actually saying, okay, do you know what? I acknowledge there is a problem and I'll look into it in my own time. Even that for me is progress. Even that's okay. There's like a seed there. You've just kind of a little bit probed a hole in the perfectness of it all.
I would even say, I mean, the conclusion is not necessarily that I hope that then that would grow, that seed would grow and they would leave Islam, just to get them to agree that, X bad thing is actually a bad thing. Even if they're in denial about, okay, they would think the Prophet didn't actually do that, then maybe I'll dismiss the hadith altogether. Whatever it may be, as long as the conclusion is the same, that it is bad to treat your wife a certain way, for example, then we've done a good job, right? Then this person is going to be less harmful to themselves and others. That's what matters.
Precisely. Yeah, no, touche. Very well said. So Apostate Aladdin, obviously this is a stream and we're just going to have a casual back and forward conversation about things like, just feminism and how we deal with feminism in terms of being ex-Muslim activists and how we build bridges and that kind of thing. But just before we go into that, I did want to touch on the fact that I know one thing you and I also have in common is the fact that we both grew up in the Middle East and we were able to go to Mecca a couple of times. And I've just wanted to ask you this for the longest time. I just wanted your thoughts on like the very first time you ever laid eyes on the Kaaba, or the walk up to the Haram Sharif, and that whole kind of experience for you.
Well, to be honest, I went so many times I don't remember the first time because I was that young. But I have the memories, or like I can't trace which one's which day, right? But I remember up until I was even older, this feeling that everything it's so grand, it's huge. Like you look around you, it's a huge, huge cube. The Kaaba looks deceivingly small in photos. When you actually see it in person, it's big. And just being in that place where there's a bit of like a quiet kind of chatter, murmur from people. You can hear birds. There's just something about it that's so different from everyday life than going to the mosque or anything.
Oh, because the Postulad and the birds circle at prayer time. Have you noticed that? They actually circle the Kaaba as well.
They also take poop breaks on the Kaaba, but that's another thing we're not ready to talk about. But yeah, I truly believe that the birds would circle the Kaaba and stuff. And why wouldn't you believe things that your parents told you, right? The people that tell you all the actual things that are true. Um, but yeah, so I remember those feelings of, wow, there must be something special here because it feels so different, and you only get this experience when you go there. And it was very similar in Medina as well, in Al Haram al Madani, but obviously it's not the same as where the Kaaba is. So yeah, it was a lot of feelings of there must be something bigger going on. But with time, the more I went there, the more normal it felt, and it still had a different vibe to it though. And when I was younger, I used to associate that with perhaps its holiness, right? Maybe it's the
Yeah,
presence of God, it's the house of God.
yeah,
um, but then I realized people feel that in their churches as well. And I went to a church once, not for religious reasons, but I was invited there for like a dinner or something, and it was an interesting experience. And I remember feeling like this is grand in a similar way. It wasn't as big of a
okay.
church, but
Mm.
there was this vibe to it, this aura of there's something different about this place. And that's when it clicked in my head. That's how other people feel about their religion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How did you
No,
feel the first time?
yeah, so for me, it was a bit different to what you experienced, actually. So obviously, I'd only seen the Kaaba in pictures, but even when I saw it for the first time, I was with my grandfather and he started crying. So I was like, oh my God, like, is there something wrong with me? Because it's not brought me to tears. But I actually saw the whole thing. I actually thought, like, obviously the white marble as you're walking in, and there's like this long, like, walk up to it. And Islamically, it was the first time they were like, you should be lowering your eyes all the way until you get to like right in front of it. Then you lift your eyes up and you see the Kaaba. And I was a little bit underwhelmed. I was more like, I like the more palatial feel of the marble walking up to it. But again, as you said, because I had like the faith at the end of it, seeing everybody else come there for the same purpose, and then obviously hearing the call to prayer, and like you're saying, the lights, the moon, the birds, you're like, wow, like, there must be something to this. But I always, for some reason, always found Medina more peaceful. I would love going to Medina more than Mecca for some reason. And I'll tell you a really funny story because you might know what I'm talking about. So there's this restaurant in Saudi Arabia called Al Baik, which is one of the nicest things you'll ever eat. Okay. So going around the Kaaba, when you're supposed to be saying at one point, like, labbaik, Allahumma labbaik, I would just be a kid going around there being like, Al Baik, Allahumma Al Baik, because there was one right outside the mosque. So I knew I'd be getting it afterwards. Um, but yeah, then even just when I was on school trips, for example, you
Wait,
mentioned
if I remember
Scandinavia.
correctly, they only had nuggets at that place, right? They didn't have the
No,
full
they actually
chicken
have like
pieces?
four-piece chicken broast meals
Really?
as well, which was like 10 reals for like 30 years, and it's just gone
I
up to like
remember
11,
that.
12. Yeah.
I remember that. I thought it was one of those two places. I'm sorry, this is very niche to talk about, but I think it was either Mecca or Medina for the longest time didn't have it, and then they only had nuggets. So I think that was Mecca.
That could be possible, yeah, because they did have
Yeah.
some, this is so niche, they did have some supply chain issues between the cities. That's true, that's true. And now they've actually opened up in Dubai as well, which is so cool. But
Have you
yeah,
tried it?
anyway. Not that I'm ever going there anytime soon. But just on that note as well, so on one of the school trips, we actually went to Taif, and I remember the stories of when Muhammad was like approaching Taif, and the people would come out and stone him, like throw rocks at him. And when we were driving to Taif, it's really kind of like mountainous, and there's like so many monkeys. And I was trying to like recall this story in my head, and it just wasn't like it was just not seeming plausible to me. But obviously the Muslim part of me kicked in and was like, wow, you're in the same city that Muhammad was like, you know, kind of like disgraced in, and he stood here and he stood his ground and he made peace with that. But yeah, so that was a little bit of the Saudi Muslim experiences.
You know, it's weird that you say Medina is more peaceful to you, because it was the other way around for me. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you why. There was an unsettling feeling for me in Al-Masjid al-Madani in Medina, because
Mm.
so in Mecca you've got the Kaaba's in the middle, right? But you've got a bunch of prayer areas, covered prayer areas, like the masjid itself. And Medina felt like it was missing that thing, you know, that it was all just what's around the Kaaba. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was kind of like endless, especially as a child. Maybe I'm having this memory as a child. You look around you and it's just like long and endless, and it's all rows and rows and rows, and there's something weird about that. And then
Yeah.
at the end, when you're leaving, my parents would always want to go by the Prophet's grave, and that
Mm.
looked very eerie as well. And I always
Yeah.
wondered, like, even as a child, it wasn't that I was questioning the validity of Islam, but I was wondering, he's right here. Like, we could just check that he's right here, and his
Yeah.
body is preserved. I want to know what he looks like, but obviously
Yeah.
you can't,
Yeah. You're like, how has no one broken this grave?
right? Like, even as a crime or something, how has no one been
Yeah,
curious enough to do it? Um,
exactly.
but yeah, they always have security there, I think, as well.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
because they've
yeah.
got that footprint as well, or they've got like a piece of hair as well, which is supposedly like a hair of either Muhammad or Abraham. I can't remember now, but they
I
have
know
it like,
Abraham's footprints. That's in Mecca. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, in Mecca, yeah.
yeah.
Um, but okay, let me just get through some super chats and then we'll actually get to the real theme of this conversation. Doorknobhead, thank you so much for your support. Doorknobhead saying $5 in the name of John Stopman and $5 in matching funds from me. Okay, I think there's got some kind of game going on, but thank you so much. And Ultra, who are always here to support. Thank you, my G. What block? G block. Oh yeah, I think Apostate Aladdin can say it as well. He's part of G block.
No, thanks for including me in G Block.
And Shiv, thank you so much for your super chat. Shiv is also saying, what's this matching thing? Who knows, my friend? Let's see. Denver Johnson, thank you so much as well. You are always here and always supporting. I hope you guys are enjoying this conversation. I've been wanting to do this for the longest time. This is why I'm going on these random tangents. So Apostate Aladdin, feel free to like get me back on track at any point.
Okay.
But yeah, the floor is yours now. You direct this, so I will stick to the point.
Oh yeah, so I had reached out to you because I wanted to ask you this. So it all started when honestly a lot of the issues that I saw in Islam had to do with women's issues, right?
Mhm.
The difference between how men and women are treated. And at first I thought about it as men and women are biologically different, right? So they have different roles in society is what I thought, and therefore it's normal that they would have different rules. And for a long time that was easy to dismiss a lot of things in Islam just by thinking that. You don't even need to look further. You just think men and women are different, so rules are going to be different, and that's that. But the more I looked into it, the more it raised questions for me. And then, so as an ex-Muslim, it's natural that a lot of the topics that raise questions for me, aside from big picture questions, like when it comes to the treatment of humans, aside from the difference between kuffar and Muslims and so on, it's men and women. It's such a huge topic. And eventually I noticed that not a lot of women interact with my content, and that's the case for a lot of other content creators and on the internet in general. I feel like more men are loud than women, and I asked why, and a lot of them said, like on a text-based forum, they said because either they're scared to use their real accounts, or because they get harassed even by sometimes by other ex-Muslims, right? They see that as a chance.
Oh,
It's an ex-Muslim woman. You know, where else am I going to meet women, kind of thing, which is not the right place to be meeting women.
yeah.
Uh, yeah. So anyway, so I've had more streams that are focused on, like, I found them just coming to my live streams even before I made live streams specifically for women to call in, and
Mhm.
they were telling me how they appreciate this kind of dialogue and space to talk about their issues. So anyway, I thought to myself, like, I should reach out to other activists, and especially women activists, to get their take on things, because I'm doing as much as well as I can with feedback from women, but I haven't had this like face-to-face conversation with someone who's also an activist, right? Aside from Infidel Noodle, and I have, of course, spoke about these topics a bunch of times before as well. So yeah, first thing I wanted to ask was the way that, for example, I might be joking about some of these topics. Is that disrespectful to women? Like, for example, I have a sketch planned about how Islam allows beating women, like the way they say, just gently, not on the face, and all
Mm.
these weird justifications. So I have a sketch mocking that. Like it's coming up. It's going to be something like how to beat your woman Islamically, and
Yeah.
it's the idea. It's so absurd to make a guide for how to beat a woman, and that's the joke. And it also educates people about what Islam says. Do you find something like that to be insulting to actual victims and to women in Islam and leaving Islam?
Well, see, I mean, obviously it's something that would like stir up sentiments and, can trigger people, of course, and especially people who have like a real lived experience of that. That's never going to be easy to see. But I mean, for me, the thought of it makes me absolutely sick to my stomach. And I've never even experienced something to that extent. But having said that, it makes me sick to my stomach because I see the exact video that you're just describing with that exact title, but actually coming from an Islamic scholar as a serious like thing. And he's got his son sat next to him and he's actually demonstrating how to beat your woman in Islam. And Muslims are watching this and they're watching it from the angle of he is a point of authority. This is somebody we look up to. This is somebody telling us our religion. So ordinarily, while I might say like, yes, that could be extremely triggering for some people, the kind of work and the space that we're in, Apostate Aladdin, I think kind of goes back to what Armin Nawabi would say in terms of like, you're always he's been pushing the parameters so that we have more room and more of a playing field to kind of play with. Sometimes you've got to induce a little bit of that shock factor because the thing behind it is that you're there to educate and illuminate from a point of this is a serious thing and I'm trying to tell you that it's ridiculous for our minds to even try and comprehend this. So your angle is like completely polar opposite from what is actually being put. Like these videos already exist, they just exist within the ummah who think let's forward this on. And in Egypt we've seen a whole generation of women who write on surveys that they think their husband has every single right to beat them, and they have been beaten and they're quiet about it. And the women themselves go on to talk shows and say, if I am misbehaving or disobedient, my husband hits me, and why doesn't yours? He's not following the law, he should be hitting you. So the ramifications of this is huge. This is internalized misogyny affecting these women, are bringing up the next generation of girls and women in their country. And we can't have this internal misogyny carry on to the point where this is just putting like a massive weapon in the hands of Muslim men, and we don't need to dispute the fact of whether or not they use it. And the fact that you're asking me this question shows that a lot of women, Muslim women, are victim to that, because that's your apprehension to kind of like just rummage through that territory. But and also I just want to say in general, I really salute the safe space that you've offered these women, because my idea to want to reach out and connect with women sprung from when I saw that you had actually made these spaces and they felt, because I understand what you mean about, even from, let's not, if we won't say bullying, but it could be intimidating even talking to certain ex-Muslims, right? So you had created a space where they felt, so I was honestly listening to it, going to bed, and I was so late here, but I couldn't switch off because these women were literally so confident and so happy to share their stories with you. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of like the whole reason behind my channel, like a big portion of it. So maybe I should be tapping into this. And then the response I've got was so overwhelmingly positive. And now I'm seeing more and more personal messages from women and brilliant ideas for videos, because they've all had a lived experience, like you were talking about, whether it's domestic violence, something to do with like divorce or dowry or halala. All of these lived experiences are now coming to life, which also gives me more of a, I have more points and more lived experiences to put out there and shine a light on it. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Well, I couple of things I wanted to say about that. You're right about it possibly being triggering for some people. So I've been trying to do a better job of putting trigger warnings at the beginning of my videos,
Mhm.
especially from now on going forward. It'll also be like this video is going to include themes of, so on, like domestic violence and so on. And yeah, I just wanted to be extra sure that it's not eh, eh, because you know how Muslims are always, and I'm not saying all Muslims, but in general, the Muslims who are critics of us are always trying to find anything to shut us down with.
Yeah,
So I've heard them say, you don't actually care about women, you're just trying to profit off of it. Or you just think it's funny to make, jokes about it or something. And
yeah,
sometimes from even Muslim women coming in and telling me that, and to be honest, it's usually the kind of Muslim women who aren't actually subjugated to Islamic rules. They're just, carrying this PR version of Islam that's all like the Prophet was an amazing man and he loved all the women and so on. So it bothered me, and I wanted to get the real take on things, right? I wanted to actually ask the victims, not just the critics of ex-Muslims. Um, and I'm being factual with this kind of video. Like, if it's offensive that I'm repeating what Islam says should be done, then we need to look at the source material, right? Like, why is Islam saying any of this? Um,
well,
but it's
that's
good
what I
to
wanted
know.
to ask you about it. And
Yeah.
like, obviously, is it all like satirical, or is the message like fully there at the end that this is the reason I'm doing this is to show that this is what happens to women within Islam? You know what I mean? Like, as you said, you've put the disclaimer at the beginning, like trigger warnings and all of that, but to also make sure that no, like, I'm just saying because that the other side can always try and weaponize us and our videos and what we say. So to make it crystal clear that, and as you said, we all know what you're saying and showing is exactly what's in the Islamic sources. And as I said, I could pull up that video of a mufti showing it on live TV anyway, and we could put them side by side. But in our line of work, like I feel like we're constantly having to repeat the fact that, we will not tolerate abuse or bigotry against Muslims. And we also are, if we're making fun of something or calling it out, it's actually to show the ridiculousness of it and to show how it just does not hold up in the 21st century. So yeah, like even for example, Ray, the producer, he's a American Pakistani ex-Muslim activist. He's just released like one of the first rap songs, ex-Muslim rap songs in English, and he's done a slight like he's rapping about beating your wife, and he's doing a slight like demonstration of how they show to tap. So I'll send you that as well. Like people
Mhm.
are kind of pushing the boundaries, especially in a creative. You have creative license, I'd say.
Yeah, and I try to make it very clear, like even to um, I always say this: Muslims are better than Islam. If everyone
Exactly.
followed Islam to whatever interpretation, if everyone truly followed Islam, we'd all be in trouble, including Muslims themselves. Seriously.
Yeah.
But we can't ignore, like, there's a bit of, we have to be delicate here, but we don't have to, like, we can't just be walking on eggshells all the time. It is
Mhm.
a fact that in Muslim communities domestic violence is higher than in other communities, and that's not to say there aren't communities out there because of religion or otherwise that don't have high levels of domestic violence, or that Muslims are the only communities with that issue, but they are one of the communities with that issue, and that's including people that I know and love. So this is not me saying that to vilify Muslims, but we can't just be so sensitive about these topics just in case someone thinks, oh, so a lot of Muslims are like that. It should be up to Muslims to demonstrate why Islam says this and why this is not harmful and why the violence in their communities, like, they need to do something about it. Otherwise, we
Yeah,
will just
because it's
point it out.
literally codified, and domestic violence is codified. Domestic abuse is codified in your scripture. That's why. That's why we have to go to that point, because that's where it is. It's enshrined. It's fundamental. It's from your God.
It
Um,
really bothers me when they say, like, you mentioned the word weapon, and it triggered a lot of thoughts in my head. You know how they say, well, Allah said don't be too hard or whatever,
mm,
some kind of just be fair with it. It's like God gave every man on earth a gun and said just be responsible with it and wash his hand, like, from the blood. Just don't
yeah,
give the people the guns. Like, it's that easy. So
exactly.
yeah. Even if
Exactly.
everyone, like all these abusers, are misunderstanding Islam, it's the fault of the person who gave them that license to begin with, to whatever degree. But
Oh, yes. Yeah. You have to put a huge burden of the blame on that. person who's given them that right. And when you start attaching words like that is the divine right, and this is the final and perfected message, there is no leeway. You have no space to play around with that. It is what it is, and it's inimitable, and it's you can't change it. You change it and you've destroyed Islam. Sorry, Apostle Aladdin, I'm just going to go through some super chats real
Sure.
quick. Abdurrahman is saying, 2 of my favorite people are on the stream. Best of luck for you both. Thank you so much for all your support and for being here. I have seen you on quite a lot of my videos, so thank you. Zagros is in the house. Hey, Zagros,
Hey, Zagros.
welcome. Stop Scamming Man, thank you so much again. Stop Scamming Man is saying, in Ibn Ishaq's work, 6 elegy poems, each made by a daughter of Muhammad's grandfather, are shown. Compare this to the Quran only so much as mentioning one woman by name, i.e. Mary. Oh, okay. I have not heard of these 6 poems, actually. I'm quite intrigued to go and have a look.
I'm
Have
not
you?
familiar, but no, not yet.
Yeah, that's really interesting, though. Thank you, Stop Scamming Man. I will look into that for sure. Nuri is with us. Hi, welcome. Thank you for being here. Nuri is saying, good to see 2 very intelligent people together. You both have good topics, especially regarding women. Thank you so much. And that's literally the point of this. I think we both have a lot to say, and we have a lot to kind of put out there, and we're just trying to kind of bounce ideas off the best way to do that, because that is so important. And if you guys know of women who are struggling or questioning Islam or whatever, please do obviously just share some of our videos, or ask them to drop by Apostate Aladdin's call-ins, because it is genuinely such a safe space. And even if they're not confident to speak, hearing so many of these other women's similar stories, I think it will give women confidence, even if they just want to listen happily. Because as Apostate Aladdin was saying, some of this is so serious. I get messages from women who say, I love your work, and you've given me so much hope, and the fact that you show your face and you speak for all of us, but I can't even follow your channel because of the algorithm in their house, because they either share a YouTube channel or they're on a shared device, and it's the repercussions are that bad. So that's why this is so important. Muslim, ex-Muslim, and questioning Muslim women and ex-Muslim women really need to have a voice and safe spaces to go to. But yeah, thank you so much, Nuri. Denver
You know
Johnston.
what's
Yeah,
sorry
go
to
ahead.
interrupt.
Go
You know
ahead.
what's surprising is I've had so many Muslim women call in, to the point that I have a stream for them tomorrow, just for Muslim women to call in, just so they, and not just the kind of Muslim women who were compelled to call in to begin with, but those who might feel like we're talking on their behalf, for example. I want them to come and tell, us and other ex-Muslim women why they disagree and so on. But I found it bizarre that Muslim women found that to be a safer space than other Muslim channels, like than
Yeah,
any of the other Muslim channels.
yeah.
That's bizarre to me, and yet we're still vilified. Like people like you and I are still presented as these evil kuffar. So, yeah, thank you for letting people know they can come and call in anytime.
Yeah, no, and again, thank you so much for hosting these spaces. It's definitely making a difference. But I'm not surprised about the Muslim spaces thing, because oh my goodness, I stay well away from those spaces. It is like a den of wolves out there.
Mhm.
And it's just, yeah, I mean, the comments are chaotic. Also, I can't. The mentality of people that follow some of those Dawa channels are just immense. Shiv sent another super sticker. Thank you so much, Shiv. I really appreciate that. Okay, just make sure I haven't missed anything. Yeah, thank you so much, Shiv. Okay. Yes, Apostate Aladdin, where were we?
Oh, so yeah, we were talking about. I had asked you about my content, and yeah, we talked about that. And I also wanted to know. So here's the thing: leaving Islam doesn't mean, for a man, for example, or even a woman, doesn't mean that you suddenly fixed all your conceptions about or misconceptions about men and women, and gender roles and so on and so forth. These things come with both religion and culture. They're kind of intertwined, and they stick with you for a long time. So belief in God, taking that away, or in belief in Allah specifically, or Islam, doesn't mean that you suddenly stop thinking of women, the same way. So it takes time to get out of that mentality for some people. So like, for example, the word feminism is seen as a dirty word, right?
Yeah.
As in, and that's because, to be honest, I wanted your take on this. What do you think feminism means to you and to people that you care for, and in this context of ex-Muslims? And is it the same as feminism all over the world?
So this is okay, so I would say feminism all over the world obviously should ideally like look the same, because the overarching message and mission is literally so simple that it's just, women should be equal in every sphere of life and every walk of life, whether it's like politically, economically, socially, all of that, right? And obviously this is encompassing intersectional feminism is what I'm talking about, right? So you have to kind of take into account all the nuances, all the varied lived experiences cross-culturally, that kind of thing. So what I struggle to do, um, and what really, really hurts me to see, and I'm seeing this a lot in the Urdu scene when I do streams in Urdu, the Pakistan there's this Pakistani girl, and she's made a whole channel trying to like debunk me in Urdu, because um obviously what I say about women really, really irked her, and then she obviously like had all these people come to my channel and try and like discredit me. But it's literally, when I'm showing a source, she'll show something so irrelevant back, right? So if I'm trying to give this larger picture out there and say things like, domestic abuse is enshrined in the Quran, Islam has sex slavery, any non-believing woman is fair game to Muslim men. Even as a Muslim woman, do you think it's fair for another woman to be at the behest of a man sexually like that, because she fell into his hands through war? And hopefully you would expect another woman, we have empathy. You expect somebody to be like, that is wrong. Taking away somebody's bodily autonomy and raping them right after they've killed their dad and brother and husband in front of their eyes is not morally okay at all. But the misogyny and the culture and the indoctrination run so deep that I've got this girl there putting out a source saying, well, the Prophet ran a race with Aisha, so Aisha wasn't really that unhappy. And I'm just like, I feel like banging my head against a wall, because I'm like, do you not understand that there's like, because their starting point is so different that I'm also trying to be like, what elements of common ground do we have? But if their starting point is so, for example, this other Pakistani woman was talking about how the contradiction and the irony is just so infuriating. So she was saying how Surah Nisa protects women. Okay, that is a whole surah dedicated to women. And then in the next breath, she says, "Oh, we don't like how girls to go out and dress freely and stuff because that's not in our culture." So you're saying this surah gives you so many rights that you're also having to hide your daughters away, or you think that's the right thing to do, given by Allah. And then this other woman was trying to justify the wife beating, and the fact that there is no concept of marital rape in Islam is almost just as bad as the getting married to prepubescent girls in the Quran and the wife beating. Those three things, also halala, there's so many, but all of those things combined are just so bad. So when you talk to a lot of these Muslim women, for example, I can't even level with them and say, do you understand that having sex, forcing somebody to have sex, or having sex with them without their consent, even in a marital situation, is wrong? And they say, no, you're married, consent is always assumed and should be always assumed as a woman. And their literal starting point is like, if you've maybe just given birth and your husband has sex with you, if he rips you or damages you in any way, then you can refuse him sex. But other than that, you should be. And they've got this all from linking the angels will curse you all night, and go to your women as if they were your tilth, and all of this stuff that they've read and internalized as their position. And then they literally sit back and say, oh, it's because my husband is the breadwinner, or there's a roof over my head, or he does that. So you have completely fallen victim to Islam's gender role division, which is so problematic. And then you're also trying to say, I'm a Muslim feminist. So in your head, the cognitive dissonance of trying to justify these things, I don't know what the common starting point would be. We'd have to be like, right, let's sit down with a basic set of rules. an equality, first of all. What is consent? The definition of consent. Marriage does
I was
not.
just gonna say that you have to define what the word consent means. You
Yeah,
have to define everything when you talk to certain people because you don't have any basic ground to start from. And they're so easily distracted by, you gave an example, so how come he was so nice to Aisha that or he was playing, foot races with her. They don't realize that the things that they cite are even more damning. Like when they say he waited till she hit puberty, that's called grooming. That's
yeah,
not like a plus for him
yeah,
or she used to play with dolls and then he let her have her friends over. How nice of him. That's creepy,
yeah.
when you have a little child playing and he lets her, like, what are we even talking about here?
Yeah,
So,
and when she follows him one day out of childish curiosity, he smacks her on the
I forgot
chest.
that she was a child at that point. Like, that's, we talk about her as if she's a woman, to the
Yeah,
point that I forgot she was under 18 at that stage. I don't know how old exactly when that incident happened.
yeah,
But that incident is funny. Like, it's not funny, but now that you brought it up, do you how much does it frustrate you, the gaslighting in Islam? Like in that incident, she said it hurt me, and everyone's been saying, no, 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 he meant to like teach her with that push. He accidentally pushed her on the chest. Like, isn't that like that's exactly what gaslighting is, right?
yeah. So Islam is, I say this all the time, but Islam is, I think, built on guilt and fear. But then when it comes to women, it goes that added step further. As you said, there is so much gaslighting going on, and also or like psychological like manipulation that's happening here. If a woman is not feeling up to it and you don't want to have sex with your husband, you at some level, if you just stay true to yourself and you don't, whether it's for your health or whatever, you just don't feel like it, if you go to bed that night, on some level, if you're a believing Muslim, you are going to feel guilt and you are going to think, oh, God's not happy with me, the angels are cursing me, and I probably like owe something to my husband, I need to make it up for him, or do. That's already sending you into a horrible spiral when you are what, just exercising your free given autonomy and your basic rights. Like, this is it's absolutely even the there's so much, like, just because of how subservient you have to be as a woman. I don't For me, I've always said, and I said it in one of my first videos, which actually inspired me to become an activist, I was like, I need to have people stop saying Muslim feminist, because that is an oxymoron.
I was just gonna say oxymoron. That's what it
Yeah,
is.
you can't. Aisha, I don't understand. Aisha is like one of my heroes from Islam, heroines, I should say, because if you read between the lines, Aisha is saying no women have suffered as much as believing women. Aisha has said to Muhammad himself, "You have likened us to chattel and dogs." Like she's saying it. She's questioning him. She's saying, "I fear your Lord. Hastens to fulfill your desires." She was onto him. And as a woman, you're reading what she's saying, and you're seeing the context around it in the hadiths come out, where even Aisha said it was a habit of the Muslim women that we would stick together. So when another woman has been violently beaten by her husband, and Aisha takes her to Muhammad to try and get some form of justice, as the most merciful man who's the example for mankind, he does not give justice of any kind. And Aisha's comment was, no woman suffers as much as the believing women, which
You
means also
remember
that
what
non-Muslim
the
women have it
what
way better.
Muhammad focused on that time? Muhammad, in that instance where she
Mhm.
was complaining and the woman was beaten, Muhammad focused on whether the guy's penis works or not. Like that was the
Yes.
focus of the hadith. He has
Yeah.
had children before her, therefore he must be good in bed, and she's complaining over nothing. Like,
Yeah. Because
why are
by
we
God, these
talking?
children look like him. Or is that something like that?
The guy had no concept of genetics. I was just reading this hadith, and I know it's not exactly on point, but I was looking in Sunan Ibn Majah's chapter on marriage, I believe it was called, or yeah. So in one hadith, someone was complaining to the Prophet, "Why is my son black?" And the Prophet said, "Don't you see the camels? Sometimes they have different colored sons." And it's just so funny that don't
Yeah.
people realize this guy was a charlatan who had no understanding of like how the world works? Um,
Yeah. They
it
also thought like whoever like came first would, that's who the child would look like.
Yeah,
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 honestly, it's hilarious.
but it's just so sad that they don't see in the hadith they're retelling to make a point. Like, what is the point of focusing on the completely wrong thing? It's almost like they need to take a moment, read the hadith line by line, and think, what was the point of this interaction? What did we learn? Is this truly a good lesson?
Apostate Aladdin, stop. It's the science of hadith, man. What are you saying?
Even that confuses the hell out of me, because I'd see
Mhm.
like 3 hadiths that are all sahih, and they tell a different story about the same incident. And then they're
Yeah,
all taken as sahih, and they say they complete each other, but they oppose each other.
yeah.
It's an insult to the word science, if anything.
It really,
It's
really
an
is.
oxymoron,
That's
hadith
another
science.
oxymoron.
There you go.
Exactly. But also just on that point that like some of the hadith, as you're saying, like you literally read it and you're like, what was I meant to take away from that? Or also you started off trying to give like make light of a situation or give us an indication about a situation, and the ending is so far like there's even points where I think Omar's trying to make a point one day and he's like, the Prophet said, don't you never question a man or something about 3 things. And he said why he beat his wife. Second thing is something about what if he's prayed the prayer. And he goes, the third one, I
I
forgot.
forgot it.
Like, how are you gonna, how is this your best work? How is this like what Bukhari has said, you know what? All of that aside, that needs to go in. The fact that
And that's a Sahih hadith. Like,
that's
that's
just,
okay.
yeah,
Those are the people who remember things, right? Who were told or have the amazing memory. It says in the hadith, I forgot. Like, it's such an oxymoron.
so
Islam is the
funny.
religion of oxymorons. And okay, I'm going to give this away, but this is my idea for why Islam is absolutely false. Like, it was never proven true, but one thing should completely disprove it is the idea of a kafir. That's an oxymoron, a believing disbeliever. That's at the core. That's what Islam is built on, right? Like, when you
Mhm.
look at what is Islam, it's don't be a disbeliever. Well, what is a disbeliever? Is someone who knows Allah exists and still denies somehow. So,
Yeah.
like, Islam is built on an oxymoron and gaslighting, because it's telling
Yeah.
you you're a denier. No, no, you know Allah exists. You're just denying it and making up excuses. So,
Yeah.
yeah, why are we even taking this stuff seriously? It's because it's affecting people's lives seriously. That's why.
Yeah, and then what when you say to Muslims, well, what would those poor people in the Amazon rainforest who have never heard of Allah and Muhammad, what about them? Are they exempt? Do they get
No,
a free pass to heaven?
they get tested in the afterlife. But if somebody woke me up after my death and said, "Do you believe in God?" I'll be like, "Yeah, heck yeah." Like, how
Yeah,
else am I here? Like, what's this test?
exactly. But what the hell? So they get a free pass this whole in this dunya? That's not fair. I'd
It's
rather not ever have heard of him and chill out in this life.
Yeah, dawah is actually evil, because don't tell people about Islam. Why would
Yeah,
you take them through the struggle? Just have them be tested in the afterlife, whatever that means.
exactly. You do
It's
your
yeah.
thing here on this earth and leave them be.
If only, like, I think I've heard Muslims say this before. They're like, yeah, actually telling people about Islam is putting them through a test. We should probably not do that. No, 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 we'll do it anyway. Like, we're burdened with the test, so why
Let's
not them?
Yeah, let's spread that test to them as well by the sword.
Yeah,
Sorry, Apostle Adam, I'm just gonna go through some super chats real
sure.
quick, if that's okay. Um, oh my gosh, Jorg, is that how you pronounce that? I'm really bad with Nordic names. I'm so sorry if I butchered that. But thank you so much for your super chat. Aladdin's PayPal link in the description might point to a different account. Oh, okay.
Oh, I
Apostle
think it's misspelled, it seems. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. We'll get that
it's all
fixed
right.
up and we'll fix it in the description as soon as we're done here. Or if anybody has the right link, just please feel free to drop it in the chat. Or if you can, Apostate Lad, you're more than welcome
Oh
to
yeah.
post it.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not too stressed about it. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Afrohumanist in the house, thank you so much for being here. I've loved your last few streams. If you don't know Afrohumanist, please, please, please check out her channel. She's literally doing such good live streams, just talking about how insane Christianity can be in Africa and what it's doing and the kind of things people believe and are forced to believe, and how the church scene is just completely going out of control. So yeah, please. And I've also done an interview with her on her leaving Christianity and speaking in tongues and some really interesting stuff. So yeah, thank you for your support, Afrohumanist, and I'm so happy to have you here. Um, Norse mythology, thank you so much. You are a regular as well, always here, always supporting. Thank you so much for being here. Stop Scamming Man, thank you so much for your super chat. For all the Bible's faults, it says males and females are made in the image of God. I found a load of Sahih hadiths on sunnah.com saying men are made in the image of God. Bible mentions female prophets, Quran doesn't. Do you have any thoughts on this, Apostate Aladdin?
Yeah, no, not really. It's I'm not too familiar with the Bible, so I can't really comment on that.
Yeah, and I'm also not too familiar with the Bible, but for me, I thought it said man, like in the original version of the Bible, but that's just because humanity is largely referred to as men anyway. The Quran, the entire time, is addressing male Muslim believers. Or like at one point to threaten us, it will say like, "Oh, believing women should be blah blah blah." But other than that, it's literally telling men what to do.
It's
But
usually like addressing the women as in your women, tell your women or the
yes,
believing women and so on. But you know what I
yeah,
found absurd is while looking through some of the explanations of some hadiths, they're saying justifying why men have precedence, over women or dominance or providing or whatever, however they phrase it. They point to how there are no female prophets, and that's proof that men are leaders. Otherwise, there would be female prophets. So they're kind of right, within the framework of Islam.
I mean,
Why
they're
aren't there
logically
female
consistent themselves, yes,
in that
right?
point? Yes,
In
like
that point.
I would
Because even
not call
Muhammad
them.
says
Mm,
no nation would be successful that has a woman leader. So he's also like fully enshrined that mentality. And we obviously know that that's that's absolutely not true. But yeah, further than that as well. Oh God, I just had a point on. Yeah, that's why in Islam now we're seeing, for example, in England, they're trying to appoint more women onto the Council of Muslims and all that. But the question of a female imam is so out of the question basically for Muslim men, and a lot of these like woke feminist Muslims, um the oxymoron types, are trying to push for that and say, well, that would be like, that's like pure equality. But again, it's not within the framework of Islam. If you can't lead a country, there's no way you're leading anything kind of religious or you're given that status or point of authority, because technically, according to the Quran, it's better for you to stay in your homes and be covered up and just make babies for your husband and be devout and not refuse him sex and all that jazz. But yeah, Stop Scamming Man, I'm not sure if this is a newer translation of the Bible. If it's not, then that's really interesting. But if it is, I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, female prophets, again, is another big one. I have a little bit more respect for the religions that at least made female prophets of some kind, or female goddesses, which we also knew was a thing in pre-Islamic Arabia. So there we go. Claudius, thank you so much for your support. Claudius is saying, thanks, Nuria and Aladdin, for this stream. Aleem, Secular Spirit, is not here. He's not in this conversation. I've done collabs with Secular Spirit, and Apostate Aladdin does frequent ones as well. And I'm always happy for him to join on. And if you are watching or around Secular Spirit, because I know you knew about this for sure, because you were kind enough to tweet, do jump on, and we'd love to like have a chat with you. But yeah,
oh,
happy
he
to do
told me
loads.
he's gonna pass by, say hi, possibly if he has time, but I don't think
Okay.
he's gonna stream with us. I don't think so.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
So Claudius, you've just got me an apostate Aladdin today. Shiv saying, Shiv, thank you so much for your support. Once again, Shiv is saying, I might now have to binge watch Aladdin. Yes, go for it. There's such good
Those
stuff.
are the best of subscribers. Those are the best of you. That's the
Sounding
worst.
very much like Allah, apostate Aladdin. Any recommendations on where Shiv should start?
Not really. I mean, if you want to get the most amount of videos, go watch the videos, not the live streams, but those are interesting as well. So, yeah, just start with my most recent videos, the series that I have on the Prophet Muhammad. There's more to come there.
Okay, amazing. Thank you, Apostate
Yeah.
Aladdin. Denver Johnson, thank you so much for your support. Denver's saying, can you bring Sadia Hamid on the podcast, please? Yes, I would absolutely love to bring her on the podcast if she'd be happy to. I actually spoke to her privately before. We'd been in touch actually for a completely different reason, but I was actually meant to be on a documentary the BBC were doing about young people questioning religion. So there was this whole thing about the security on that, because obviously this was going onto nationwide TV, and they got people from various religious backgrounds who were questioning. And I had just left Islam at that point. And it turns out that actually, for once, it wasn't the so much the threat from Islam, but the threat that somebody else from one of their really, really, I think it might have been Jehovah's Witness or something. He was from one of those communities, but there was too much of a security risk. They had to cancel it all. But anyway, Sadia Hamid was so helpful in just terms of like just being like in terms of security and protection. And she was one of the first women that I saw speaking from England out against Islam and showing her face. So she gave me a lot of like courage to go ahead and do it. But I think she has taken a step back from all of this, if I'm not wrong. I think she was kind of more focused on her hands-on work, in like social work that she's doing, and her personal life. So if she's willing to get back in the sphere, I'd absolutely love to. If you can connect her. No, I think I still, yeah, I'll have a look for you and see if I can get her on. But thank you. Right, sorry, Apostate Aladdin.
That's okay. Oh, I had a question for you. So,
Sure.
tell me if this is inappropriate for me to say as a guy. So I made this joke before about those feminist Muslims, the oxymoron. I've called them before, and a specific subset of them I have referred to as the makeup tutorial hijabis, because I think that's an oxymoron, isn't it?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
so, for sure.
I mean, at the expense of sounding like one of those annoying Muslim guys who's like, "Sister, I'm only trying to advise you." But seriously, like the hijab and the makeup go against each other. So anyway, I called those, like, that subset of Muslimas
Mm,
who are not exactly really adhering to Islam, but are preaching it to some extent, and
yeah.
they're covering up like the actual struggles that women go through with Islam. And the true Islam, as in like there's no true Islam, but the Islam actually practiced,
Mhm.
actually practiced, that the majority of Muslims follow. So anyway, is that demeaning to women? Is that seen as sexist to make that kind of remark?
I would say it's all right because that's actually what they are. That's what they're doing. Like a lot of these girls are actually doing makeup tutorials while being a hijabi, so it's very much like just pointing out something. It's actually true more than anything. It's just describing that subset of hijabis who also think that they can like be a makeup or social media influencer, and those things are like they somehow in their mind they add up. But again, this is a point of contention for me where because you do that and you make it so fashionable and you kind of make it so and now I see a lot of these sports women hijabi kind of people are wearing the Nike hijabs, and there's so much more of like every model on every like page now has to have some kind of scarf or some form of representation. But yeah, no, the thing is, I always think of it from the perspective of a woman, and I like have cousins who are hijabis, and I also say to them like, do you not miss like being able to, I don't know, like just style your hair or the only thing, and they're like, yeah, of course we do. And we always think like when we're out, like, maybe the outfit's not complete, or because of the hijab, they almost have to overcompensate with other things. So to an extent, I completely see it because I feel so bad. Like, take hair out of the picture completely. And what else do you have left as a woman to focus on, especially if your clothing should be kind of loosely fitted and you're still fully covered in every sense of the word. There's only so much you can play around with. So they go hard on the makeup. We know how girls in the Gulf are literally, they don't care anyway. Under their abaya, they're dressed like however the hell they want. That as soon as the plane lands in a different country, like the abaya is off, the hijab is off, they go to the bathroom, they come out like a different person. So yeah, it is, as you said, it's an oxymoron, and it is happening. And I'm like, if you wanted to follow Islam fully, you would know that these two things cannot add up. But that's what I'm talking about, Apostate Aladdin. This level of cognitive dissonance is so real that to be comfortable there, you're either so content in your fluffy bubble of what you think Islam is and what you think your God permits you to do. And I'm afraid that if I was still Muslim, I would be like that too, because I do like, enjoy certain things and I'm quite liberal in my thinking, but then I'd also constantly want to like still say I'm Muslim. So I found a nice, like even I did as a Muslim, I found this nice little, oh, I'm Sufi kind of thing vibe for a while. Like love is God, God is love. Sufis are more peaceful. And then I realized, oh God, even they have a dark history. But do you know what I mean? Like that is, you have to operate in this world as a progressive woman. and enjoy it and kind of express yourself, but still cling on to your religion, there is a level of cognitive dissonance at play, and you are just going to be in that.
Oh, and I'm not saying that those women shouldn't enjoy those freedoms. Like, just to be
Mm,
clear, like, I'm glad that they found room for that. But
mm,
what bothers me is advertising it as if that is what Islam is. I mean, a hijabi woman wearing makeup, I'm not gonna go tell her, "Hey, you're not wearing the hijab properly," or any of that stuff. But when she advertises it as Islam allows you to do this and Islam empowers you in so many ways, it tricks people into Islam, or at least stops Islam or protects it from so much scrutiny that it deserves, so that the actual victims are not getting the attention that they need, because the attention is
exactly.
diverted to this person. And an outsider would see this person and be like, "Oh, Islam ain't so bad," and then they forget about the 10 other women who are not allowed to do what she's doing. And she's not advocating for them. Like, mind you, those hijabis, there's makeup tutorial hijabi types, they're not going to communities where women are harmed and they're trying to liberalize them or whatever, or make them more progressive. No,
Yeah.
they're just advertising it to people who are already more progressive. And I
Yeah.
don't like how it puts a PR face for Islam.
And apostate Aladdin, the only reason we have to be really like, this is why I'm like, you should definitely, like, you can say that, and that's why I call out the scriptures, because and talk about these countries where this is not the case. You are just able to be this like makeup hijabi because you're living in the West. So you can take advantage of both things, but what you're doing is negating the experience of all of those women in places like Iran, where they have the White Wednesday protests, right? In Afghanistan, in Saudi Arabia, in these countries where you don't have a choice, let alone the choice to flaunt whatever you want on social media. They actually would go to prison, get whipped. All of these are real lived experiences they're having. But for you, giving the hijab, as you said, this brilliant PR face that you can be so modern and progressive and still wear hijab, what you're not, you're taking the spotlight away from the fact that the hijab is a form of, like, it's a cloth, but there's so much an oppressive patriarchal like subjugation of women that that veil stands for, and the women in those countries, those real Muslim countries, are the ones paying the price for it. Like, there was that video circulating, did you see it, where they played a prank on their family members about removing the hijab, and did you see the reactions of their fathers or brothers or whoever was on the receiving end of it?
Yeah. I
Some of
was
them,
just going to say, I mean, you mentioned Iran and Saudi Arabia, and people are quick to dismiss these countries. Those are real people who live there, but they're quick to dismiss them because, oh, that's not Islam. Those are fascist governments and so on. But what about all those people, like in the example that you're mentioning, in families all over the world, including in the West, right? Muslim country, like communities in the West, and this happens to everyday people in every country, and to large numbers in some of these countries that you think are more secular, Arab countries, for example, and that people ignore because they always focus on Saudi Arabia. No, like, it happens in Jordan, it happens in Egypt, it happens in
yeah,
Tunisia. And like you said, that it's a prank, that the woman is taken off the hijab and she gets a violent reaction from her husband, and then all is good once she reveals, no, I'm not actually taking it off, and nobody learns the lesson. It's so frustrating to me to see the hijab romanticized on one hand and called a choice, and on the other hand, knowing not only the extreme country's reaction to that, or what the law says in some countries, but the reaction on a smaller scale in every family. And it frustrates me, so I can't imagine how you feel as a woman. Like, it pisses me off. It makes it very hard to be in this space. So how do you keep
yeah.
going?
Yeah, the thing is, I my end goal, like, I literally just always look at the bigger picture, you know. And as I'm saying, like, it's really starting to kind of pay off now, with now the messages I received have skewed towards more women, like messages of women saying, like, solidarity, like just messages of solidarity, or saying, like, thank you for being our voice and this and that, or like just at the point that they've left Islam and how they think now. But what's like really really irritating with this whole um, hijab situation as well is flaunting this choice element, right, and saying it's a free choice, and then you ask them the same question. You say, well, if I was literally living right now in Iran, is it a choice? Is it the same thing? Does that apply across the board? If you're so happy to say that and you want the world to hear your cry about that, then you need to also address that there's my fellow Muslim women there who don't have that same choice. And as you're saying, I've just given examples of the stricter countries. The other ones that you're talking about as well, countries where you think, things are a little bit more different, maybe in parts of like Lebanon, Jordan, Bahrain, some of these countries maybe. I know an ex-Muslim girl who has left the Arab country behind, moved here, started a new life, and is absolutely like so scared for the fact that there was one picture of her on her Instagram without a hijab, and she's sitting miles away wondering if her family are gonna send death threats or try and send someone here to kill her because there's a picture of her without a hijab. And I could not believe what I was hearing. Like, if that's what's happening to somebody from a family who's got an amazing education, a great job, she lives in one of those more kind of liberal, if you were to say, slightly liberal Arab countries, but she's still that scared for a piece of cloth is not there in one picture, and she can't sleep at night because she's worried if her dad or her brother will take the next flight here to try and track her down. So this is not something you can just dismiss as, oh, it's either confined to those Muslim majority countries where it's like by law women have a bad time. No, women behind closed doors in normal lay families like mine and yours, Apostate Aladdin, have these kind of issues to deal with.
I agree, and I wanted to ask you, unless you're gonna read a comment or something,
No, sure, go
how
ahead.
so this is frustrating because when I talk about these topics, some people are quick to just take it out on hijabis, for example, or they go to every hijabi and say, "You're oppressed. Your life sucks. You don't realize it, but your life sucks." And some of them have found a comfortable space, in being a hijabi. Some of them are just internalizing this sexism, right? Or they take things that they shouldn't have to, but they think it's for a good reward, and somehow they have some kind of balance going on, or they're just bottling it up. Whatever the case, I
Mm.
I don't want people to go and take it out on hijabis, and at the same time, I don't want people clapping for hijabis and praising them and having World Hijab Day and stuff because they're celebrating a symbol of oppression. And the more you look into, like I've tried, for example, the approach that I'm going to take is talking about what is the hijab, how did it come to be, how does God address women about the hijab. Just yesterday I was looking at this verse. I can't quote it off the top of my head, but two verses one after the other. One where God was saying to men, lower your gaze and protect what is in between your legs, basically. And in the next verse he says the same thing to women, and you need to cover up this, and you need to do this, and you need to, it's like 5 times as long, and you can only show this to this man, that man, your
Mm.
granddad, your so on, your so
The
forth.
list goes on.
And
Yeah.
in the end, the most absurd one that really, was weird to me, don't stomp your feet too hard because your jewelry might like make a noise and that might turn on some men. Like, how can they not see that this is basically putting all the blame on the women? Like, there's
I
so
mean,
many
Apostate
areas.
Aladdin, even beyond that, perfumes banned. Like, everything. I mean, there was a time when I think, was it Aisha? She was ill at one point, and her or somebody else, their hair started falling out, and they asked the Prophet, the mother of
Oh,
that.
extensions for,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and he was like, "No, you are the worst of the worst, whoever does that." Like, just, and then obviously women appear and just appear and disappear in the shape of a devil. Um, and again, your the way you walk, there's even a thing where don't talk too loudly or don't talk too kindly to a man because he could even be tempted by the way your voice sounds.
Well,
And
that's the
obviously
thing.
then
If
the thing about
it's a
speaking behind
power
a
of
curtain.
suggestion, it's kind of the power of suggestion. If you hide men and women away from each other, like, I'm sorry to say this, and this is not anything about you, but a man from that environment can hear you talk in this conversation and be, have some weird feelings in him because he's never encountered a woman talking before. And you're not, quiet. You're not just keeping your words to a minimum. So that alone is enough to, so-called bring up the lust in him, and he doesn't know what to do. And then we haven't trained him how to control that.
Yeah.
Like a dog, a subset of them are going to be rabid. And it's just,
Mhm.
we're creating the problem by setting these rules. And so what I was getting at is, how do you tackle these issues while also looking out for the Muslim women? Because they will be caught in the crossfire to some extent, But at some point, you have to just stop having to worry about the fringe cases of them being harmed because you're pointing out what's wrong in Islam.
Yeah, precisely. That's exactly it. So my thing is to never kind of just start getting into places of contention with them, because as I said, I've got family members of my own who are hijabi, and when I was obviously like not active or anything, but I would ask like, why do you wear it? The only thing they genuinely know, and this is the childish reason that I wore it when I was 9, is because that's what Allah like wants me to do. It's in the Quran, right? So that was her rationale at the time. And now it's just insane to me, like once you realize the story, I mean, it's almost embarrassing that the story, that the reason that hijab came about. So when I was able to make that link, all of this, like everything just fades away. This whole thing of, oh, this is meant to like protect you and God ordained it and all of this kind of stuff. It's actually the most embarrassing, disgusting, perverted story that started all of this. And more than anything, this was Omar trying to push this for such a long time, probably because he was insanely lustful as well. They all were just, not the best kind of men at that time at all. But so a lot of these hijabi women, I'm going to be really honest, and they can plead ignorance, like they don't know why it came about and why it's so demeaning to women and why it tries to erase you from society and why it hypersexualizes like little girls from the outset, and you're told that you should cover your body and even your uncle shouldn't be seeing your arms and this and that. Like it just sets a weird mentality from the outset, but they don't see it, and out of their ignorance, I can't believe they fall for the lollipop and fly situations and whatever, but they have to justify it and say it's beautiful. For me, my job, I think we're quite similar in that sense, Apostate Aladdin, is just to literally be like, okay, let's not even talk about the merits of hijab and whether it restricts vitamin D and if it's good for you and all that kind of stuff. Let's talk about why is it in Islam? Where did it come from? And then you have that story. But again, this is where I've hit a bit of a roadblock. So far, only fellow ex-Muslim women and people from other religions are willing to hear me out on that story. If I tell that story to Muslims, which I have, even in my own family, they don't engage with me beyond that point. I don't know if it's out of embarrassment themselves. Like I'm saying that Sauda was out answering the call of nature at night. Like it's embarrassing to even tell the story. So
You
I
know,
can't. Yeah.
here's my idea too, and I haven't, done that yet. I have so many ideas, not enough time to execute them. But so the summary of the story, like you said, is Muhammad's friend Omar, his angry, macho, toxic masculinity symbol of a friend, is a peeping Tom. And
Yeah.
when Muhammad's wife was going to do her thing in the night, he just said, "I saw you," and trying to embarrass Muhammad into covering up his wives. So my approach is going to be to make a joke about that. And then I never make jokes with the intention to anger or offend people. But when you see the shock value in the joke about Muhammad's friend being a peeping Tom and Muhammad being too spineless to actually stand up to him, right? Like, what kind of man is that? They put an emphasis on this manliness and protecting your wife and ghira. And here he is being completely emasculated by his friend.
Yeah.
If I make jokes about that and people, get angry, I'll be like, why are you angry? The story is real. That shock could jolt them into something. I feel like when people laugh or they have a heightened reaction, they
Yeah.
may be more likely to take in the information. But it could also turn very awfully for me, unfortunately, because you know what happens when people don't like a joke about Islam. But what else can you do? You tell them the facts and their brains shut down sometimes. Some people, when they know, and it's new information and they process it, and that's great. But some people, it's difficult.
Yeah, and I completely get you, and that's why, like, when even my first video ever starting out was, I was just trying to make it so clear and say, look, like enough is enough. You can't, like, it was called Islam Does Not Equal Feminism, and it's just source after source after source of like Islam berating women, saying like your prayer's nullified when a woman, a dog, or a donkey crosses you. I just wanted to put these thoughts out there because a lot of people don't even constantly, like, a normal liberal Muslim's not going about reading Sahih Bukhari or whatever, life
Not
gets
even
in
the
the way.
Quran. not even the Quran.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just here like, actually, this is what your sources are saying, and there's something for everything. Like, and when you see it back to back like that, I mean, I thought it would be triggering for example, I did actually show that to like my siblings and my mom as well, and I was like, oh, I was scared because what you feel, apostate, and this is, you almost feel like dirty even after watching that video because of some of the things that are in the hadith. You literally are like, it's hard to stomach. And that's why like Friendly Muslim came on my Sunday stream the other day, and you know, he just seems like such a decent guy who's really concerned with human rights. And I'm just like, but how do you stomach some of the things that you read? Like, I will tell you something right now, like, he who changes his religion, kill him. How do you stomach that? Like, you know, because you obviously have to deny it somewhere, and then once you deny it, then that's what I'm saying. The whole question on Islam is posed already. But what I find, and what I find with a lot of women, is even if they acknowledge that there's problematic parts, and they do, because even Muslim women, like, if there's a divorce happening in your surroundings and people are commenting on whether it was said 3 times and whether that's gone through, or the concept of like they're just discussing why does she have to marry someone else to remarry that man, you know, they are having to deal with these heavy topics that they don't fully understand. But somehow it will always come back to like, well, Allah knows best, or they retreat into that bubble. But I'll tell you something, what I've started to see with every woman interaction I have is every Muslim woman has made Islam a version of her own. And it's like, however good she is and whatever personal traits she has are kind of projected onto her Allah. And they're kind of happy in that, if that makes sense. Do you see what I
But
mean?
yeah, but reality shouldn't be subjective, right?
No,
Like
please shout
I
that
mean,
from the
the truth.
rooftops.
It shouldn't be subjective. I mean, it's good that you somehow have a life, and that's the problem. Sometimes it's even internalized to the point that this woman doesn't realize that it's not okay. Like when a victim says he only beats me when he's angry, for example. Like
Yeah.
that's in my opinion a very good analogy of what God is in general, let alone women in Islam. Like aside from the beating part, God, he only tortures when you deserve it, when he's angry and you deserve it. It I don't know what to do to jolt some sense into them, but some of the things that I found in these hadiths and in the Quran even, I try to point out, like, if we paint this man, right, that Muhammad, what he was doing, if we put that in a different context, how disgusted would you be by that man? And
Yeah.
often people would be very disgusted. And then you tell them, but this is what Muhammad did. Well, it's different because, so and so. But I suppose you can only do your best to inform people. But I'm trying to throw in a different spin on it to make them realize that some of these some of these situations are so basic. Like anyone should be able to see the hypocrisy. Like Muhammad
So,
breaking his own rules.
yeah.
Like I'll give you one example I just read about yesterday.
Hmm.
I made a video, and in a joke in the video is how if you want to marry cheap, you can marry a slave and you pay half the mahr, right? Because
Yeah.
so that's a thing, and they would spin that into a positive, like, oh, that's because to get more slaves out of slavery, blah 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 blah. Okay, but let's not even get into that. But
Yeah.
Muhammad himself married a
Mhm.
slave, and he paid nothing. And when he was asked, he said, "Well, her mahr is her freedom."
Yeah.
You translated like she's still a slave, basically, and you broke your own rule. So
Yeah.
that is kind of facing, like, that's a fact that cannot be escaped from. You can't really twist that into anything except he gets an exception because he's the cult leader.
Hmm.
But I think the best we can do is just keep showing them a bunch of different instances of the simplest examples that don't need a lot of knowledge and a lot of digging to see the hypocrisy in. But you can only do your best. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, apostate Aladdin, like, to be honest, as you were saying, like even these simplistic situations, like Muhammad himself, just the way in terms of his treatment of his own wives, and like, you know, trying to change around, what was it? It was Hafsa's turn, and he tried to say to her, like, have her give up her turn, and just the kind of domestics that are going in along with Muhammad and his general behavior and demeanor. As you said, if you were to ask that question, pose it to them, and replace Muhammad with somebody else, those people are 99.9% of the time going to be absolutely disgusted. And a lot of the obviously like Western liberal Muslims I meet, and I say this all the time, like we watch the news together and they are as repulsed at, you know, all the atrocities as I am. They have the exact same from where I'm coming from, like, you know, morality and humanity and everything. But again, when it comes to him, if in any other context they would say, yeah, that's wrong, for some reason, the indoctrination is so deep about the status he's given, like obviously love him more than your own parents, love him more than anybody, that he's almost given a carte blanche to have done those things. And even if you're like a clever, you know, 21st century liberal progressive Muslim, you will start coming out with those lines like, it was in that time, and you were like, you as well, like really, you? No. But then do you see how and a really simple point which I want to also give a lot of those women who justify sex slavery and justify, like, you know, Muhammad having multiple wives, and, you know, Allah threatening women in the Quran that he'd replace Muhammad's wives with better wives, they justify all of that by like the timing and that whole spiel. But if you actually think about, like, just in general, if that was to happen to any other woman in any other situation, you would have called it out. You would say that that behavior is not right, right? So now all the argument you have is that he was the prophet and that was the thing of that time. It doesn't happen anymore, and we don't even have to apply those rules. Some Muslim women say that, like, that these things shouldn't apply anymore. Like even the iddat period, now we have like pregnancy tests and that kind of thing. We don't need to use. This was for a time when they didn't have these things. But then I always flip it and just say, well, then that message, that whole premise that it's divine and eternal, and he is the example, after him nobody else will come that has such a good character as Muhammad that we should all look up to. So that's all gone then. And so that's when, for me, the dialogue stops. As in they stop it beyond that point, because that's obviously a lot of stuff they're going to have to confront, right, on a personal level.
I think you got to get them to think by throwing in a joke or two. I mean, let's think of how this is. We're watching the drama of the Real Housewives of Muhammad, right? Why
Yes.
is that in the eternal book? Like, Gon was sitting before the existence of time, and he's like, what am I going to put in a book to prove that I'm real and a guidance for all of mankind? Before I create humans, before evolution, before the existence of planets, Muhammad's going to have some fights with his wives and he's going to blackmail them. Like, what's the point? And think of all the trees
That's
that we
so
had to cut
funny.
down for all this paper, how much
Yeah.
thinner the Quran would have had to be. Like, all of this
Honestly,
just for stuff that's outdated. Yeah.
for Muhammad's domestics, like that's in the eternal message to mankind.
But here's the danger, though, that people see him as a guide, and the point, like, nothing in the Quran is there for no reason.
Mhm.
Everything is there because it's a perfect book, not one letter too much or too little, whatever. So
Mm.
that means that there's a wisdom to be learned from each of these lessons. So people will take some of these singular occurrences that are only for the Prophet and make up some kind of wisdom from it. And I'm talking about not some people like scholars, even, not just the everyday Muslim. Like, for example, when any woman can offer herself to Muhammad and he doesn't have to pay her mahr and he can just take her and marry her. They said, even though the verse says, offer herself to you, only to you, Muhammad, only to
Mhm.
you, Muslims are concluding this means that, why else would this verse be there? It means that a good woman can approach a man in marriage, even though the verse says to you, so they're going to stretch it and it leads to harm in real life. So it is funny, but it is also not very funny.
Yeah,
That's
no. And then even a step further, like obviously I think the hadith is like the Quran is damaging it enough in itself, but the hadith really go and like add some proper juicy meat to that, because it actually goes as far as to say a woman that arranges her own marriage is an adulteress according to Islam. So
even the woman who arranges a marriage for another and like approves on it on behalf of her mahram is an adulteress as well, or an accomplice.
yeah,
I
literally.
only learned about this yesterday. It's not even yesterday. This morning I was researching hadith. How did I not know about this stuff?
Yeah,
How
no,
do we expect Muslims to know?
this is not minor, by the way. Like, this is why you have the concept of like a wali or a
Mhm.
guardian in Arabic, and it has to be like it's literally anyone, like the next, like the man down the street before it's any woman close to you. Like it literally is like your
Oh, and it goes
father,
up to the leader. Like the leader of the tribe can approve of a woman's marriage, but
yeah,
not
before
herself.
your mother or sister or yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my God. It literally goes to like your grandfather's brother's uncle before your own mother or yourself.
Anyone
Like
with a penis, any penis will do. Like that's
exactly. And
yeah.
that's why you have the real situation in Saudi Arabia with like the wali guardianship system where, you know, it's every aspect of your life there in a real like Sharia state. You can't travel, you can't work. I found it ridiculous. Like it was probably like 2014 or something, and I had to get permission, either written permission from my dad or my husband while I was married, just to give me the right to work. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm the one bringing the credentials and the education, and I'm the one that's got this job. And they're being like, I give my daughter permission to. I was like, this is madness. But by law, you have to. And it literally, the visa would say, like, oh, daughter of, or like housewife, even though I'm not. Like, that's literally, they want to keep you so downtrodden. Um, and Apostate Laden, are you happy for us to go through a couple of super chats real
Oh
quick?
yeah, for sure. Hey,
Okay,
Myth
thank
Vision.
you. Yes, Myth Vision is in the house. Thank you so much for being here. And you always drop by on my streams and show support. So thank you. Guys, I'm sure everybody who's listening to me has already seen Myth Vision podcast. Basically, Derek's YouTube channel. It's called Myth Vision Podcast. Go and check it out. There's so much going on there. Like if you are into that historical stuff as well and busting myths and really doing deep dives, that's what Derek is doing. And it's amazing. And actually, I think Derek, AP, and Gnostic Informant did a stream maybe yesterday, if I'm not wrong, on the origins of Islam, which was really, really interesting. I loved seeing all three of their takes on it. So yeah, do go and have a watch of that if you are interested in the origins. But yeah, thank you so much, Derek. And I'm just going to go up, guys. I'm sorry if I've missed super chats. Stops. Okay. I think this was Stop Steinman's first message. Thank you for all your support. Of course, the ancient world stank. One amazing respite was frankincense. Oh, I love frankincense. Think on this when weighing the significance of forbidding perfume for women. Yeah, true, actually. But Muhammad loved, was it frankincense? I think he did say that was one of his three pleasures in life.
I don't remember what that translates to in Arabic, but yeah, there was something about is that kafur? Is that what that is? I don't know. But
Yeah, you
yeah.
know, you get it in different forms, but like in Oman and stuff, the frankincense that comes from there, where like you can light it with the charcoal, like almost like the oud thing,
Mhm.
but it's frankincense lit, so it smells so good. Stott Steinman's also saying it repels mosquitoes as well. Oh yeah, so that's obviously like the main practical usage
Oh
for it
yeah,
as well in the
bukhur. Yeah,
desert.
we had those around the house. It was like a stick, basically, or that's how
Yeah,
they sell them now. And you
yeah.
put them in like a wooden box sometimes. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In fact, back in the day, like women would even just like put it, like spray it all over and like put it in their hair, and like you'd want everything to smell like frankincense. Um, but yeah, sorry, I'm working my way back up through these super chats. Zagros, how are you gonna play me like this? You've asked this question. I saw you ask Secular Spirit the same question yesterday. You've asked me, you've asked Horace, you've given your thoughts. But thank you so much for your support. And he's now asking you, Apostate Aladdin. This wasn't really the purpose of go on, it's hijab and women. So Apostate Aladdin, do you think hijab and all religious symbols should be banned in public schools K to 12? I think that's kindergarten to 12, right? For all students.
My opinion is no, because so it's conflicting in my mind, and not about whether we should ban it. I think no, but here's what's going on in my mind right now. So I think hijab is inherently sexist and oppressive. And people will say, but some women choose to wear it, so on and so forth. More power to you. But as a concept itself, it is sexist and oppressive. The idea that you showing hair is being immodest in any way when men have hair. Men have muscles. A man can be shirtless and that's still halal. So it's not about modesty. It's not really about attracting the opposite sex. Men can do a lot of things that are attractive and dress in ways that are attractive, but are still considered halal. So this is purely about whatever reasons the author of the Quran and whoever got their, fingers in the hadith, that's their motivation, is why women wear the hijab. It's very outdated. It's not really beneficial or relevant. And I don't believe in God, so I don't, or at least not Allah. So I don't think that Allah is actually saying, hey, I forgot, by the way, I created you a long time ago, you've evolved, and now I remember you need to cover up your hair that I created for you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Oopsies.
Oh my God, I
Oopsies.
love that. Yeah.
It's, and he's like,
Whoopsies.
oh,
Oh, just remembered
by the
something.
way, penises, let's just chop a little bit off the top. I
Yeah.
forgot to do that at the factory. I'm sorry. Like, what are we even discussing
Yeah,
here? But
Allah is the
anyway,
best of creators. All right,
yeah,
mate.
with an asterisk.
Yeah.
Um, so here's my point. This is a bad concept to even to indoctrinate young women into, or not even young women, to indoctrinate girls into. When people say young women, we think of women who have hit puberty, right? That's what we're supposed to think of. But anyway, when you convince a woman, or when she looks around her and everyone's wearing the hijab and everyone says how amazing it is, even though they might be struggling, but they have to keep up this face of this facade of it's amazing because otherwise I'm going to go to hell, um, eventually she's gonna feel the urge to wear it, even if years later she realizes this was a bad decision. She doesn't really have a choice when the other choice is hell. So getting children into religion and fear tactics and wearing the hijab, I think is borderline child abuse. And so I'm against it. But to set it as a rule that, okay, people are already wearing the hijab and teaching their daughters to wear the hijab, you need to take it off to participate in education. That's a bad idea, because then you're going to have girls who are homeschooled, and it's even worse. There's less exposure to non-Muslims when in that way, less exposure to other people outside their mentality, their parents' mentality. So now they're going to be ultra super indoctrinated and possibly even oppressed in that environment more than they would have if they just went to school. And it's going to make people cling to their culture and their norms and their religion even harder. So I think we need to address the issue from, I don't know if you'd call it the bottom up or top down, but go to the source itself and teach people what is the hijab, what is Islam, and then voluntarily a lot of people are going to start leaving this practice behind and not teaching it to their children. That's my take on it.
Thank you, Apostate Aladdin, for that. And I have to say, I second everything that you've just said. So yeah, thank you. Zagros is saying he had to get to the bottom of this. So I think he's asked around now and he's going to formulate his opinion. But yeah, definitely let us know when you get to the bottom of it, Zagros. I'd be interested to know your thoughts. Denver Johnson, thank you so much for your support again. Denver saying, saw a hijabi walk her dog yesterday. Strange, eh? Yeah, so this is another thing I know and obviously struggled with as a Muslim as well, having a dog and then knowing like Islam for some reason, even before I knew about all the hadiths where the Prophet says like, you should kill the dogs and the black dog has the devil in it. I didn't know it was that deep. I just knew that Islam frowned upon dogs and was for some reason like Muslim families around me took such a softer approach to cats. And I think that's why, for example. But in Pakistan, a lot of people who had dogs would only keep like the massive like breeds that were capable of being guard dogs, and their justification would be in Islam that Islam permits dogs for guarding purposes only. So there was that kind of people who dealt with it that way, and they only got specific breeds. But then a lot of the time, like lay Muslims like myself or whatever, if you like dogs in general, I love dogs. You would always think that this is a weird requirement and I'd always think, Islam thinks dogs are dirty, or you can't pray because if the dog comes and like sits on your lap or like happens to lick you or something, then you have to do like the ablution again, or you can't even pray for 40 days in Islam, something like that. So that would deter a lot of people from having dogs. But even like my own family, and we have like quite a lot of pets, whenever they see a video about Islam, about dogs, or Islam hating on dogs, they actually like one of my family members scrolled past and they're like, I did not want to see that. Like, why does it have this take on dogs? Like, and then I've even put it out there and I was like, well, it's because dogs can like sense bad people, maybe that's why Muhammad didn't want dogs around him. But and I even go as far as to say maybe like it was because dogs spelt the other way. They're probably closer to being God than
God.
Allah himself. But yeah, really cheeky
Um,
comments back. But yeah, again, Islam's take on dogs. What the hell?
I think part of it might have to do with maybe, and this is just pure speculation, that
Mm,
there were more rabid dogs in the desert, or like they're not as, as cute and domesticated and trained as we have them today. So he had a fear of dogs, perhaps, or maybe it's superstition because he was a very superstitious man.
yeah.
Something he borrowed from another culture. Who knows? But it's weird that he thinks to neutralize whatever filth in the dog, one of the 7 times you will do would be with dirt, like, or touching with
Oh
dirt.
God.
Like, how does that neutralize anything like a germ or something? I don't know. It's bizarre logic. But I found it to be a reach when, when Muslims kept so-called guard dogs, that
Mm,
they were just like, it was a loophole, almost like a technicality. Like, oh, it's technically a guard dog, but who are you really fooling there? Um,
exactly.
yeah.
And I don't even know where they like where that little loophole comes from, to be honest. I need to do some digging if that's a thing or if that's just been, like that it's just what's like an apocryphal like thing that people say, like that woman throwing rubbish at the prophet, which that hadith does not exist at all. So maybe this whole line of reasoning doesn't exist. I'm not sure. But again, I can see the whole thing about like, yeah, there could potentially be a problem with like rabid or stray dogs or whatever. Um, and like even rabies, if he knew about it or didn't or whatever. But
Mhm.
the fact that like he as you said, he was very superstitious because he actually goes as far as to say the black dog is the devil, so he actually thought like that's the devil incarnate coming in the shape of a black dog, right? And also the fact that one time there was actually in the hadith that I don't know if you might know the Arabic better, apostate Aladdin, but the translation I read in English was that one time when Gabriel tried to come and visit Muhammad, there was a puppy under his bed, and from what I read then, it wasn't like a threatening dog or anything. The English actually says puppy, so I was like, even that he said to Gabriel, like, apparently, well, he blamed the fact that Gabriel didn't enter his house on that puppy being under his bed. And I was
So
like,
I don't remember the wording of that hadith. I just
mm,
vaguely do, so I can't comment on that. But what I remember is that hadith where he hit Aisha on the chest, or pushed her, as some Muslims say.
mm,
Um, he was saying Jibril couldn't come in because you were not dressed properly. Like, that's Jibril. He just keeps up making these scenarios and excuses, and that was also very funny to me because when you think about it, so her aura is showing, right, whatever it is, her aura, but Jibril
mm.
is an angel. Does he have an angel human, body parts, sexual reproductive organs? Does he have lust? Does he have free will at all? Like, why is seeing Aisha dressed in her home clothes such a big no-no? It's all part of this like purity culture. How
Yeah,
dare a male entity, not even a human, see you? And victim blaming, obviously, but yeah, yeah. So puppy, woman, whatever. He just keeps mixing those things together.
yeah, exactly. It could be anything at the time, but like he throws so much under the bus, and usually it is like women. In this case, it's dogs as well. But the amount of things that he blames for, like when Gabriel doesn't meet him in the designated time. Like there was another time when apparently Gabriel said, "Oh," and this also points to the fact that Islam was never really monotheistic to begin with. But him and Khadija used to worship idols in their own house, so there was like a curtain, and it was depicting some kind of idol. And apparently, when Muhammad was, going through one of his moments of revelation, he thought that Gabriel didn't enter the house because of that that curtain that had like graven idols on it. So again, in Islam, we just see absolutely nothing depicting any sort of like photography or anything. They even tell you like generally it's a known thing in Muslim households, right? I'm not sure if you guys say it too, but we're like, don't put pictures up because then angels won't come into your house.
I mean, thankfully, my family didn't observe that, but I've heard
Mm,
that a lot. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. I remember in Saudi Arabia, so I didn't go to a Saudi school, thankfully, but
Hmm.
I had a book to learn Arabic better than our international schools would teach us Arabic. I had a book at home that was from the Saudi curriculum, just an Arabic book. That was all. And I was a child, like, very basic stuff. And it had illustrations of animals and whatever. And each animal or any living thing, I don't even remember if they were humans, but any animal would have like a black line around the neck, just like a black line. And I remember asking asking my mother, did someone just scribble in this book before me or something? Like, why is there a black line on each neck? And she told me, well, they believe that it's haram to draw a creation of God because it's like, it's as if you're creating something and you're challenging God. I'm like, how minuscule is that God? Like, how little and insecure do they think of that God? But yeah, some
Apostle
people have
Aladdin,
these
you couldn't
beliefs.
go to like a life portrait drawing class or like self-portrait drawing class. This is all forbidden, as you're saying. You are competing with God, is the logic. Like only Allah has the power and authority and is capable of making something. Like they actually would scare. This is what I was told at my mosque when I was younger. Yeah, they're like, if you draw something, like if you draw even a face of a person or whatever, on the day of judgment, Allah's going to show you that drawing and ask you to bring it to life. And you can't, so don't you dare have the audacity to draw it. That is for God only to do. But that is an
It's yeah.
absolutely crazy, crazy way to think.
Do you think that
Uh,
that artist would have sinned, for a second before they drew the black line? Like they finished drawing the lion or whatever, and then once they're done, that was a sin? Or did they have to draw the black line before they were done with the lion? Just a
yeah.
decapitated lion first. I don't.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, the struggle is real, man. The problems they have. But literally, this was how bad, like how just they throw like there's so much that they just like or someone's like chucking the baby out with the bathwater, right? So when I was like young and I'd go back to Saudi, like coming back from the UK, going back to school in Saudi. So you're at the airport, and I was young with like a teddy bear. It's Apostate Aladdin, I will let you go in 2 minutes. Is that cool?
Yeah.
We can wrap this up. Sorry, I was mindful of time. I'm so
That's okay.
sorry.
That's all right.
So yeah, they literally thought like they would confiscate teddies and just say they're all pigs. And I actually was like, that's not a pig. And they're just like, no, haram, haram, haram. So there's no differentiation at all. In Bahrain, for example, they don't even have the Lord of the Flies book published because it talks about a pig. They don't have books like Animal Farm. You can't get it. This knock-on effect is insane. But
Yeah,
yeah. So I am mindful of time. I'm sorry, Apostate Aladdin.
that's okay.
This was amazing. I know we kind of talked randomly about so much, but this was so much fun. Thank you so much for being here. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Um, yeah, I hope we get to talk more in the future. I'm sure there's a lot more that we didn't get a chance to talk about.
Mhm.
And thank you for your work, and I hope that you get more of those opportunities to get women on your channel, like you intend to. It's always a good thing, and yeah, I appreciate you giving me your time today, and everyone your viewership. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, no, awesome. And please, you are more than welcome back anytime. And obviously, like, this is great. I could do this for hours. So let's definitely like collab again soon, for sure. And again, thank you so much for giving those ex-Muslim women a space and for opening my eyes to how many of them are out there, so I can also kind of, do my bit. So yeah, thank you once again. And guys, girls, whoever's watching, hopefully we'll see Apostate Aladdin again very soon. But in the meantime, please go to his channel, subscribe, check out his latest work, especially everything he's kind of banging out during Ramadan. And the live call-in as well. I think you said there's one for Muslims coming up. So if you are a Muslim, this is one of the safest spaces in this movement. So please do go ahead and call in. And there's one final super chat. Sultan Salatin, thank you so much for being here. Sultan Salatin is also an ex-Muslim activist. She does streams in English and Urdu. Unfortunately, I've not been able to do a stream for a while, but me and her will be doing one in Urdu very soon. Thank you so much for your support, Sultan Salatin, and for your voice. She's saying, what an amazing stream, more power to you too.
Thank you.
Thank you, and more power to
Subscribe.
you. But yeah, good night, everybody, from myself and Apostate Aladdin. Thank you all, and I hope you learned something and had a good time.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye bye.